July's meeting. Justin's so kind to give us, put the video recording of that on the Eastgate's website under the Citizens Advisory Report. First up, where are you going to do? It's going to be joining you guys. We're going to go one at a time.
I'm going to let our distinguished team.
Thank you for inviting me to give it up. It's been a few years since I've been here to talk about WRGA. Should be fine. All right. Sorry, I have my glasses on. There we go. All right. All right, just a quick overview about WRGA. As hopefully many of you know, we have multiple services we provide. Our biggest service is our fixed route service. That's the large buses that go up and down streets on a consistent basis. We also have something called AADA and our senior paratransit. It's our service we provide to those individuals that are either over 65 or have a disability that they can't ride the bus, so that they continue to have service with us. We also have county-wide service, and this service is to provide service to the rest of the county where our fixed route doesn't go. So we can pretty much, we receive this tax-based system, so we want to make sure we cover as much of the county as we can. And sorry,
Can you speak up just a little?
Sorry. So we also have county-wide service. That is, again, what covers the rest of the county that our fixed route service doesn't cover. A few years ago, we made a small change to our late night service. We extended our fixed routes a little later, but on top of that, we added a modified demand response type system. So we have 3 or 4 buses out at between 9 and midnight to help carry trips in the later hours, so we can cover most of the day. And we also have had for the last few years, for the most part, a couple routes up in Warren, the city of Warren. That is through a grant that's going to run. The latest grant's going to put us to at least March of next year, trying to show Warren that they need service up in Trimble County. See what they decide to do after the grant runs out, because that's funded by the Trimble County, the city of Warren, and a federal grant. So just some quick information about us. We have, this is a 3-year look at our fixed route information. So you see here, during the COVID, we got about 900,000 people we were carrying. We went free fare about 2020 during COVID. And just as we came out of COVID in 2022, you can see the growth of ridership. In 2023, we carried 1.6 million people just on the fixed route side. That is our best numbers we've had in over 10 years. So it's our service is doing really well. And because of this free fare, I think it's going to continue to grow. It's kind of leaps and bounds. I'm really happy with the results of being able to do that. And just kind of perspective, we run about 1.9 million miles on our buses to provide that service. It's about 100,000+ hours of service we run on the fixed route service. And you can see it costs about $13.4 million to run that service. On the paratransit side, where our small buses, and this includes ADA, the county-wide, and the late night service, the ridership didn't really change all that much, even during COVID into now. The biggest limiting factor there is we have a set number of vehicles we put on the road with a set number of people we can carry, because it's on demand. So you have to register, you have to reserve the trip, and we can only carry so many people at a time. So that growth hasn't really changed much, even with the free fares. You can see that even the vehicle miles have kind of dropped down over the last couple of years. And then the cost is about $2 million a year. And just a small, quick talk about how many buses we have. So the 35-foot buses, ones that go along the fixed route, we have 46 of those. The LTVs, which are the smaller buses, we have 25 of those. And we have 6 minivans that mostly do county rights service. And a quick little look at the map. You can see how much we cover of the county. The bulk of it's in the Youngstown and surrounding communities. We do have the Warren Express going up to Warren, and then we have the Lordstown Express going out to Lordstown and North Jackson. And just this is next couple slides can be what we're doing now and for capital projects and stuff. So the biggest thing starting in September, we're going to be running an autonomous shuttle. You may have heard of there's 2 shuttle projects going on at the same time. The city of Youngstown in 2018 is part of the road project they got for downtown, the Smart 2 project. They got an autonomous vehicle and we were part of that. About 2 years later in 2020, we were awarded a grant to do our own autonomous shuttle. It's taken us 4 years to get here, but we finally have the bus manufactured. It's currently in Virginia, getting outfitted with the autonomous package. So it's the hardware and the software. And we're going to have a kickoff in August. Well, I guess it's August now, August 22nd, to showcase the vehicle. And then about September, let's say 20th, give or take a few days, we plan on launching a service. It'll run for 1 year. The service will start at our transit center on 5th Avenue and go up 5th Avenue past the university, cut across the park to Mercy Health, wrap around Mercy Health, and then come back down. And basically the service is, we're trying to see how the autonomous infrastructure works. It's only, again, for a demonstration. We're actually a partner with PTA. They're a transit organization out in California. Once our project's done, they get it for another year. And we're trying to see how this software and hardware works, because we want to see if it's going to help assist us in keeping, basically for safety is the biggest part. Because if most people have new cars, you have lane assist, you have emergency braking if you get too close to a car, and all those safety features. Well, buses don't have those safety features. And I don't know why, but this part of this project is to test that out, but also to test out the self-driving portion. So the driver, which this is all contracted out, they can spend more time helping the passengers and dealing with the passengers as opposed to worrying about the bus and how it's driving. So we'll see how that works out. Just first glances, it's very expensive, so I don't see it happening anytime soon on a regular part of our future. It may be long term, but not short term.
Is there going to be a driver in this bus?
There'll be a safety driver in the bus who'll take over if it doesn't work or runs into something it can't handle. And it will be an electric vehicle. We're starting to move our transition from a diesel to electric. So that'll be our first electric vehicle that we have. We have a sister bus that's identical to that bus without the autonomous component that we're getting in about 2 months also. So you'll start seeing that. And in 2026, we'll start transitioning from diesel to electric all our buses. And that will take about 6+ years to do that. And I'll talk about some of the highlights of that project compared, switching to electric and how it's affecting the rest of our campus. So what you see here is a picture of our campus just up the street here on Mahoning Avenue. Just to kind of give you a highlight, because knowing this information will explain some of those stuff I want to talk about. On the right, you'll see the employee parking lot. The gray roof is our main bus barn, and just a little north of that is our wash rack where we wash the buses and fuel them. And on the south side, the black roof building, that's the original bus barn that we store buses in. And on the upper left corner is our admin and maintenance facility. So with that in mind, back in 2022, we put together a master plan of projects we wanted to do to update our facility. So in this drawing here, again, on the left side is our employee parking lot, but that aqua color is a solar panel field. So we're going to put a solar canopy over our parking lot. In the center, where you see the original, where we had the original old bus barn, which is the darker greenish color. We wanted to replace that, updated, because right now we can only back in the vehicles or pull them out. There's only doors on one side, or on a traditional bus barn and our newer bus barn, there's doors on both sides. You drive in and you drive out. Much easier, much better to use. So we wanted to not only fix the bus barn, we want to expand it because we need more space. There's the blue area. That was an idea about adding more space to our bus barn. We haven't really gone too far with that one yet. And then you'll see to the north of the bus wash, this building called the engine wash room. So we added an engine wash area because they were washing engines in our maintenance area, which was destroying our lifts because the water was getting into the lifts and destroying it. So we just built that. And then there's a little pink area above our just top of the map there. That is a canopy that's going over our gas dispenser. Right now, and for the last zillion years, they've been fueling our small buses outside in the weather with no protection. So we had to try and do something for our employees to make it a little more, a little better for them. And then on the left side, if you know our property, there was the big mound of dirt where the railroad track used to be. Well, the original owner of that property took the dirt away and let us buy that property. So now it's flattened out. So we're gonna expand our main admin maintenance facility out to the east, and then put parking over there. And then I'm going to describe these parts because that's what we wanted to do back in 2022. So I've been very fortunate. We have been getting grants to do all these projects. So you'll see in the next, probably early next year, we're going to start construction. So again, the black area of this map, Bus Barn A, we're going to be we may tear it down or may reuse it as it is, but we're going to completely redo it and expand it over to where the cars are kind of parked there. Give you a little guide. So here's a rough draft of what it may look like. This was an early concept drawing we used to to get the grant. We're going to go we're starting the design work now. We'll probably put out for bid this fall, and construction again will be spring, early next year. Here's an example, talk about the solar canopies, just an example of what it may look like. So as part of that bus barn expansion, we're going to combine it with our solar canopy. We got a grant from ODOT, from ODOT to put solar canopy in so that when we start transitioning over to electric buses, we provide our own power as much as we can. It's not going to cover everything, but it's going to cover a big chunk of it. And one of the design concepts is to do these awning type things over the parking lot. So not only does it provide power, it'll provide covered parking for our employees. It's going to help in many, many ways. And then just like 3 weeks ago, we just got a grant award.
But it's so ugly.
So just about 2 weeks ago, we got awarded a grant from FTA to update our main bus barn. And the biggest change that you won't be able to see, but you can see in this picture, is it's going to have solar panels on it also. But it's going to allow us to update the fire suppression system. It's going to allow us to update the doors. Because for the longest time, and I don't understand why we did this during the winter time, and during summer, of course, too, but during the winter, they kept the doors open because they didn't like them opening and closing because they couldn't keep them repaired. And so our former maintenance director just kept them open, and it gets got cold. So we're hoping with this new update, we'll be able to keep the doors closed, keep the environment better for our buses, which because they're diesel, they're harder to start. And when we do switch to batteries, we want to keep them at least reasonable temperature. Plus we'll have, that's two things. So Bus Barn A and this barn will have chargers for our electric buses too, as part of the grant. I'm probably going too fast, but I'm trying to get all this done. We also were awarded money to fix up our admin building and expand on it. So right now, everything is white. Again, I don't understand why it's all white. There's just no texture or to it to me. So we're moving to a traditional brick type. All you see here is the outside. The inside's getting fixed too, just so you know. So we're trying to expand. So everything you see in this top left picture, from which says WRT over, that'll be new, and everything to the right of that will be is current and it'll be rehabbed. So basically, we're adding office space right now. We have people in closets, and we had to subdivide office space, so it's very cramped. So we're spread out. So we're gonna build office space, build a new boardroom and training area, and then reconfigure the other area and expand for our bus drivers because we've been growing. We were around 80 drivers. We're trying to get to 100 drivers, but we've got a room that's a third this size for a break room. It's got 3 tables in it, a small little refrigerator, 1 little microwave, no room for them to take breaks in. So we're going to add space for break room, space for a quiet room, because our drivers, some of them work split shifts. So they come in, work 4 hours, maybe off 2 to 3 hours, and then work the second shift. So we want an area they can rest in or sleep in when they're in between shifts. And then expand our dispatch and some other things to make it, again, more usable space. And the biggest project, not the biggest, the other ones are bigger, but this one's a big one too. So we also were awarded a grant for engineering design work. I would like to replace our downtown trend center. If you've seen it, it's basically got that small building up front and bus shelters for where the passengers. So one of the ideas I've seen across the country was this building. Now this is a design that's for our building, but it looked like this, where we put the buses under and passengers under roof. We're going to add a parking garage and apartments. So the grant is going to help us design this building. And here's kind of some more layouts of it. So basically 2 floors of apartments with a green space roof. It's going to have parking for public parking and parts for the residents, and kind of giving you an idea what it could look like. So the left side picture, that's the first floor, 2 lanes with both bi-directional bus lanes with solid parking, waiting area, office space, retail space. And then the second floor you see is the parking garage, and then kind of a basic design of what basically all they did was they just put squares with apartments in it. With a final design, I don't know what's going to be. That's what the engineer design people will do, and that's going to start this fall. We've almost got the grant finished. In this renderings, we had about 60 apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, and a couple studios. But as you look at the drawing, and if you pay any attention to it, you'll notice that we're next to other buildings. So some of these apartments would have windows. So I'm kind of, it's going to take some little bit of work. But the purpose of this grant is, again, to design work, to work with the area, with the city, the Port Authority, the Historical Society, which is across the street, and some of the other buildings around us, the YSU, say, we're going to be putting this building here. What else do we need in the area to really make that in the town look nice? So not only will we get a design for our building, hopefully this document that we finalize will provide a document for others to build off of and help them get money to update their facilities. And last is Bus Bar and C. It's the future project. I don't know if probably no one knows this yet, but if you know the Clearview building, as we call it, which used to be the company that was in there, which is the building to the east of us, on the other side of the old railroad tracks. We just purchased that building. We're going to be retrofitting it. Not soon because we don't have any grants or money available for yet, but we'll start using it because of all the other construction projects. So basically everything you see on our concrete area is going to be under construction next year. So we have nowhere to put buses, nowhere to put employees, parking. It's got, we're going to be cramped for space. So the building where we bought, the Clearview building there, is big enough, as you can see, it's actually bigger than our bus barn. We'll be able to park a lot of our buses over there, and it won't disrupt our service as much. So you'll be seeing that. And one project I don't have in here, it's part of it because, I'm all about make it look good. So, we have a chain link fence in front of our facility now that just doesn't look great. So we got some funding. We're going to replace all their frontage with a wrought iron fence to really try and make that as you come off over the Peanut Bridge into Commons area, it's going to look super nice in the next 2 to 3 years. So, so quickly, what's going on at GA? So if you have any specific questions, I ran through these little projects. I'm glad to answer them, or anything about our transit side, I'll be glad to answer that too.
How long is the free transit going to last?
So my goal is to make it last as long as I'm here. So I hope at least 5 years, and hopefully longer than that. Just to give you some idea, kind of got to do free fare. I've always wanted to do free fare my whole I've been in transit for over 30 years. But it's been very hard because people have always felt you need to pay to get the bus. And I've always been, well, you don't pay for a cop to show up, you don't pay for a fire truck to show up, you don't pay when you go to the library, and you all pay tax for it. So why would it be any different? But that's old school thought because these people private used to run transits. They used to make their money. We don't make money from fares. If you can imagine, for every dollar we collected in fares, we spent 50 cents to get that dollar. So half the money we collected in fares was spent getting those fares. And that's just the cash side of it. And then you've got the personnel side of it. So we had to have mechanics fixing the fare boxes constantly, pulling the buses out of service when the fare boxes didn't work. The, I won't call it fights, but the disagreements between drivers and the passengers when they didn't have the fares or they were taking too long to get on the bus. All those things really factor into why I like zero fare or free fares. So when the pandemic came, we had some extra money, and because of the way we had to separate, keep our distance, and board everybody from the rear, we were able to go free fare. And I was able to show our board why going free fare worked, why we should keep it. And so far, they've supported me on that. And so I don't see that changing. And the biggest reason why, besides the fact that it costs money, is we need new fare boxes. New fare boxes are a couple $1 million by itself, and we don't have a grant for that. And that couple $1 million is more than we would collect a couple of years just from fares. So it's like spend money to get money, spend money. It doesn't make any sense. So long story short, it's gonna be a while.
So you're gonna have solar panels to electrify the buses. Is that gonna be sufficient to, or are you gonna have to still go on the grid for the rest of it?
So just to give you,
That's a problem, the grid in
well,
the future.
if you look at it in reality, it's not, because if you look at the consumption bell curve, when we would be charging buses, the power grid is not being used by anybody else. So we won't affect it. And electric cars in general won't, because not everybody doesn't charge at the same time. Without that all being said, that's a political answer. But yes, the solar panels by themselves will not be enough. And to just kind of give you an idea of the power, this is an example I saw one somewhere. If you know San Francisco, they got that building with the little corners on it. I think it used to be an insurance building. If you saw it, you would instantly recognize it, but it used to be in all commercials, other commercials and stuff. But they were saying this large building in San Francisco uses as much power as 50 buses do. So they were trying to compare the power consumption. So they do use a lot of power, but that's spread out over 6 to 8 hours. So it's not going to be quite as bad as, having to power all 50 buses all at once. And on the routes, they may not need to use, they won't come back with zero batteries either. And then we'll probably add more solar panels as time goes on, because we're going to have a larger roof over there. Again, but solar panels don't equate, it takes a lot to produce enough to do anything with.
Is there still any discussion about the satellite transit stations, out Boardman or say?
They're still on my to-do list. I would love to. I want to put
I remember when you first came here, Dean, a long time ago, and I just remember you talking about it.
So my dream was to have a transit center by the mall somewhere, because we have 3 or 4 routes to go into there. And then we have the loops. So let's say 3 to 5 routes kind of centering on the Boardman area, let alone the mall. And because the loops pick up hardly anybody, the goal would be to keep the main routes going into them, and then take those loop buses, turn them into on-demand, and make the Boardman and south of Boardman, a zone for paratransit trips. You just like Uber your trip anywhere in the area, and then to the transit center if you want to go outside the area. And then the second area that we're kind of looking at is North Jackson, Lordstown. We run a route out there. We serve a bunch of the bigger buildings, but we drop you off at the front. I don't know if you see how far away those buildings are from the street. They have to walk a long distance to get to work. So it's really hard to convince someone to ride a bus if you're going to be walking that far. And it's not, I won't say it's not safe, but it's not, because there's no sidewalks. It's very close. So the idea is we build a small, I'll call it a parking area lot, because it's easier to get money for parking area lots than it is for a transit center. Put a transit center out there, and then still run the main bus out there. But then from there, again, have a zone that has small buses that can bring you right to the front of the businesses, and also serve the rest of the community, not just those that are on the route. But we cover up all North Jackson, maybe even a little bigger window, our zone, to try and get daughtership out there. So I don't. That's a little, unfortunately, getting land has been a nightmare. Especially North Jackson area, you might find a piece of property, someone buys it, and then they want to sell it back for 10 times what they bought it for.
We caught wind.
They did. Any other questions?
Yeah, these solar panels, they're gonna require a lot of maintenance in terms of washing them, because it's been said that they lose a lot of their efficiency when you get dust and grime on them.
That would be true, but we're in Ohio and it rains. When I was in Akron, we built 4 solar arrays, 1 megawatt. And that's a lot. That's, if you would visualize it on this map, it'd be 4 of the bus barns, maybe a little bigger because we had bigger bus barns there because we had over 100 buses in Akron. And didn't have to do one thing. The only thing we had to do is occasionally our inverter would go down. They had to do something with that and make sure it was working. But it worked falsely. And then according to the warranty, they allow solar panels to lose between 1% and 2% a year. So they're supposed to be good at least 25 years, but you can probably get 50 years out of them before they're really totally useless. So they should last a long
Technology
time.
is constantly improving.
Yeah. And
Even since then.
yeah, and just to go on that thing, so we did, the first array we built was like $6 or $8 per megawatt or whatever unit measure we use, kilowatt, I don't want to, the other half. But the second one was $2 cheaper, the next one was $2 cheaper. Time we put the last one was like $2 megawatt. So we actually put 4 times the size of array and we did the first array for half the cost. And we'll do the same here. Solar panels are so cheap now and they're producing more per panel. But the rain washes and cleans them. So they'll be flat. You don't even have to put them at an angle.
Dean, it's obvious if you drive around town enough during the day that the ridership's up, you can see more people sitting around. Do you have a ridership by route?
We have rush by route. Yeah,
That's something you can provide us?
yeah. We can, I'd say, could drill down to individual stops, but I couldn't do that from all the stops.
No, not by
But
route.
I have actually a spreadsheet that has it by route going back 5 years now. I think I've been keeping track of that. So yeah, I can send it over.
Yeah, there's a couple of people that work downtown that said, coming down Market Street because they park at a mall. And they just ride it out here. They're standing room only sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of these routes, and you go twice an hour. That's something like in the morning and
Well-
afternoon, you might have to go triples.
Yeah, and speaking of that, so you'll see soon that we're cutting our routes, and not cutting our routes. We're going from half hour to hourly on, I think, 3 routes starting sometime in August. We have lost so many drivers that we are missing trips now. So unfortunately, yeah, we've got to cut service, but sunny side to that, it should be short term. We've got a class of 7 starting in 2 weeks and a class of 6 starting in October. So we'll have 12 more drivers if they survive. But my past experience shows we're lucky if we keep 50% of anybody we hire. We should be able to put back some, if not all, that service by December sign up. So it should be a short window, but we are hurting big time for drivers. So if you know anybody who wants to drive a bus, please have them send a resume in. They'll definitely get an interview if they have any experience.
Last question, just for clarification, on the transit center plan that you have, that's not a funded project currently, right? It's just a plan.
So yeah, so just the design of this is, because we got a couple $1 million to design that, but we do not have the money. That'll be the next step when you get the plan done to apply for the money. The problem is it's got twofold. One, it's very expensive. They're estimating between $30 to $60 million project to build this. The other part is it's got apartments. You need people for buses, and downtown needs more housing. So, but transit, even though they say you're supposed to work with housing, they won't fund housing. So it's a catch-22. So one of the components of this grant is to find partners that will help us build the apartments. Because if we can't get money for the apartments, the backup plan is the first and second floor only.
Yeah.
I really don't want to do a parking garage. Because, I mean, it doesn't do us any good. We're not in the business of providing parking. I don't like
This is what
it.
other communities across the country are doing, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and they're downsizing. So it makes sense.
Yeah, this design almost mimics one that's in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And if you Google it and find it, which is really hard to do because even I know it's there, I can barely find it. It looks fabulous what they've done with that, and I think this would just be a nice centerpiece for that for the coming into town on that what for sure. Whatever side it is, a town. Questions?
Thank you.
Hope I didn't go too fast for you. I like to talk fast. And I do have a low voice, so hope you heard everything I said.
Sometimes they don't work. That's why I brought the cheat sheet here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Myrta Ray's Chapman. I am the Transit Program Manager here at Eastgate. And I work closely with Dean and our county commissioners in Trumbull County and our senior levy folks, development of disabilities and independent living organizations to help people in our area find transportation that they really need to get to jobs or to medical appointments. So okay, there you go. I have been the longest season Eastgate employee here. Most of you have known me for many, many years, but I was one of John Getchy's first hire here when he became a director, and I'm still here. And there's a lot to do still. And that's one of our caricatures. And I just wanted to do a little overview of some of the things and projects I'm working on and things that I do. We try to coordinate our transit planning activities with multitude of agencies in the region. We also work with our Ashtabula County commissioners when they were developing their coordination plan, and some of the cities and municipalities that want public transportation. We work with our Federal Transit Administration, ODOT, Office of Transit, and Federal Highway to try to bring monies into the area. As Dean had mentioned, there's a lot of different grants that they were able to get. And we try to coordinate and talk to our federal partners too, to bring that money here. We've been very fortunate to get federal funding and state funding because they know that those projects are going to be completed in the time frame that they say they're going to do it. So we're pretty excited of some of the things that are happening right now in the Valley. Currently, as part of the Transportation Improvement Program, I prepare the transit section of those for the TIP, what we call the TIP in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we conduct fiscal analysis and forecasting for future. And when we talk about the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, we're planning for the future, and people are like, I'm not going to be around, but you know, your grandkids or somebody else is going to be. So we want to plan for the future. currently, last meeting you had, there was the document that I presented at our TAC was the Transit Development Program. This is done every year. It documents all of the transit planning changes that have happened in Mahoning and Trumbull County. And it has an overview of some of the things that have transpired over a year period. And there's a lot of changes that take place. And we wanted to make sure that that history is captured in there. So when people ask, well, why did this happen and why does that happen? So that particular document that's prepared every year in coordination with the Western Reserve Transit Authority and the Trumbull County Commissioners and Trumbull Transit up there. So a lot of that data comes from them. Okay. The other thing is that we like to look at public transit access and also planning for the future for people who have disabilities. We have an aging population in a region, and we have to plan for that and look at how do we address getting people to a bus stop, rather that's looking at and evaluating if there's sidewalks there and how do we get them safely to a transit stop to get to their jobs or to doctors or grocery store or even socialization. So one of the things that our agency in the past that we did a accessibility map that showed the missing links to a transit system and how, like, the missing links for sidewalks and the linear feet that we need to make improvements to fix those sidewalks, whether it's you have a curb cut for a person with a disability. We were looking at that particular data. And also, how do we address that with funding issues that come or different types of funding that we have here at Eastgate? We would like to see, like, cities and municipalities look at those missing links before they build new. One of the things that's addressed in, there's some explanation of it in the transit development program that I talked about, is our urbanized area. Like on the, you're right, we used to be a bi-state urbanized area. Now we are just a urbanized area for Ohio. There were some complications when the census had changed and we were in 2010. We were dealing with a different state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Transit funds come into an urbanized area. So we had to do agreements, memorandum of understandings between the feds, the state DOTs, the two state DOTs, the commission over there in Pennsylvania, the transit system over there, our agencies. And at that time, we had different designated recipients, which complicated things on how do you split funding that comes into the urbanized area. Highway dollars stay within their own states. Transit dollars don't. So that was a real complicated thing to address, but we got through it and we're dealing with that. One of the unique things about when we had a bi-state urbanized area, that if an agency couldn't use their monies, we were able to loan the money or to another agency that was a designated recipient of federal transit dollar funding. Currently, right now, we have one designated recipient. Within the past year and a half, we were going over to one designated recipient. The governor of the state of Ohio wanted to see transit regions, and this was a priority that we have certain regions. And because there's too many designated recipients, there's not enough funding to fund transit projects. So in this whole process, in the scheme of things, when the new census came out in 2020, Pennsylvania dropped out and we were just Ohio. So on the far left here, right now, that is our designated area. We are a TMA, that's our urbanized area. So we're planning for what's in our urbanized area. WRTA is currently the designated recipient of those funds. for the urbanized area. We used to have 3 before. Now we're down to 1. Now, talk about transit funding. The Federal Transit Administration usually funds urbanized area projects. There are formula funds and there are competitive grant funding. So the urbanized area funds use like the 5307 and the 5340 funds. And also for 5339 funding that comes into the urbanized area. Now that enhanced mobility and seniors and individuals with disabilities, which is called the 5310, every time a transportation legislation gets enacted, there are changes to how programs are done. Now, at one time, ODOT was the 5310 designated recipient of those funds. Then transportation legislation came and that shifted. And then we had other designated recipients. WRTA became the designated recipient. Pennsylvania had their designated recipient. So now, when the legislation, there was several meetings and discussions about who is going to be the designated recipient of the 5310 funds for our urbanized area. WRTA turned back their designation back to the state. Trumbull County turned back their designation back to the state of Ohio. So now those particular funds are administered by the state of Ohio. For those who have been here, you remember the old 16B2 program, the VAN program, what they used to call that program locally. So now the state of Ohio has a grant application process. You have to apply for those funds through ODOT. And they decide by using our urbanized area dollars that come into our area, what projects they're going to fund. Also attached to that particular funding is you have to have a coordinated transportation plan. So when all of this was taking place within the past 2 years, there was the coordination plan that was updated and it identified strategies and priorities. And one of the priorities from the last plan was to look at those connectivities to public transit. There were 2 projects that were funded using the 5310 funds when WRTA was administering those that program. It was the city of Warren got a project and Liberty Township got one. So Liberty is in the process of doing theirs. City of Warren did their project right now. So they fixed some sidewalks, put curb cuts in for access around the fixed route service, the Warren Express route. Currently, their FTA has 36 competitive grant programs for urban and rural areas that are open to transit systems in the United States. So for formula grants, there's 13 currently. I've attached the link on the bottom of this slide so you can see, if you pull up that link, you can actually see what it takes you straight to FTA's website on the different grant programs. Now, not everybody is eligible for those programs. There's a lot of regulations for that. So, I mean, if you have any questions on those programs, you can feel free to call me. I left my business card there on the table. And once again, if there's a transportation bill that's passed, some of those programs, there could be more programs or less programs. The Ohio Department of Transportation also funds transit, and their funding comes from the General Revenue Fund, which is a biannual funding. The governor approves those funds on a biannual basis. They also can apply for federal flex funding and competitive grants. So transit systems can apply for competitive grants through ODOT. Bus and bus facility, that's the 5339. The state can apply for that, just like transit systems can apply for that type of funding. There's also elderly and disabled transit fare assistance program. And there's also the Ohio Public transportation grant that's authorized by the Ohio Revised Code to provide safe and reliable transportation for people in Ohio. One of the things that WRTA has been very successful is getting funding through the Ohio Transit Partnership Program. It used to be called the OTPP, and they changed the name, so now it's OTP2. So this is a discretionary grant program that each transit system in Ohio is competing against each other for funding from the state of Ohio for preservation of transit systems. And so there's two different tiers. There's tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 focuses on preservation. Tier 2 is actually focusing on regionalization and coordination, upgrading your technology that needs to be updated, workforce initiatives, and also healthcare initiatives. Then there's, as I mentioned earlier, the 5310 program that's administered by ODOT. And nonprofit organizations and some public organizations can apply for those type of funds to provide transportation for people with disabilities and seniors. Now, it comes all down to the local transit funding to match those federal and state dollars. So you can't complete a project unless you have local dollars to match it, unless the federal government's being generous and gives you at 100%, but that's unheard of anymore. In Mahoning County, there is a 0.25% sales tax that was approved in November of 2008, and it generates over $10 million per year. The Federal Transit Administration recognizes sales tax as a sustainable, dedicated funding source. So when I say sustainable, I mean, you don't have to go and program something for a year and then take that service away. So those type of projects are looked upon favorably by the state and the federal government. In Trumbull County, with all the changes that have taken place, Trumbull County received a 5310 grant. They were not the designated recipient. ODOT did a subrecipient with WRTA so they could pass that money through. So that particular money that's being used is being used for the two routes, the 73 and the 74 routes in Trumbull County. At one time, Trumbull County received the OTP2 funding, which was the largest allotment in the state of Ohio. And we had our kickoff here where they came in, from ODOT officials came in to present the funding. That was not, there was no local monies from Trumbull County that supported that particular grant. So when that grant ended, everybody was scrambling around and it's like, well, you can't take our routes. And then, WRTA was blamed. The area needed to start thinking, and, we've been planning this in meetings of how are you going to support these routes in Trumbull County if you don't kick in local match for it? So right now they are receiving the 5310, and that's going to run out in 2025. Or if we could stretch it a little bit longer. So it's not really a guaranteed funding source. Now, meetings that we have with the Trumbull County Commissioners and the City of Warren said, well, we'll kick in half of the money, and, as long as the county commissioner kicks in half to match that grant. But the grant's only for a year. So you're going to put service out, and then you're going to have to pull it out because unless, powers that be in Trumbull County say, okay, we're going to continue this and provide money to support this. So there's also the senior levy monies that are going into supporting public transit in Trumbull County for seniors. That is also approved by the Trumbull County commissioners. The senior levy, they set aside so much money for transportation, for medical trips for seniors. And that particular, and it was in the paper today, they were having a meeting about it, to put, an increase or whatever on the ballot in Trumbull County. Now, seniors, there's a waiting list for different services that the senior levy folks have. Whether it's somebody that comes in and cleans your house or for medical or assistance, there's still a waiting list. And that money can easily go away. It's not guaranteed. Then there is the developmental disabilities is kicking in money to support transportation in Trumbull County. That particular, it has to be approved by the TD board. And that's to transport people with developmental disabilities. And that is not guaranteed. So as Dean had mentioned, his routes and the current funding that he has, if you look at the routes that are extending up to Trumbull County, you have the Warren Express route. There are also routes that go up to Giant Eagle on Belmont Avenue, but that's through this particular map. The dashed lines is the paratransit for people with disabilities. And that is a 1/4 mile boundary on the side of each route, on the 1/4 mile around the route. So people with disabilities can access that service. They have to sign up for it and do their application with the WRTA. The route that I talked about, the Elm Road route, the 74 Elm goes up to the Walmart. And so people can access Walmart because in that corridor where there's a lot of jobs, in stores, restaurants, that. As Dean had mentioned, and we've been tracking ridership, annual ridership for WRTA for a long time. And Dean was talking about 1.6 over 1.6 million in ridership. And you could see the dips in the ridership and the trends in the ridership, because there's always something that happens when there's a dip. You have COVID, so it dipped. So we can basically see if there's a recession, how it affects ridership. So, and at that time between 97 and was it 2006, their ridership was increasing steadily. All across the country, people's ridership was decreasing, but WRTA's ridership was increasing. In Trumbull County, right now, they have a little bit over 36,000 riders per year for their service. And that was for the service that I talked about that is in conjunction with the senior levy and that particular 5310 grant. So there was a lot of transition that happened in Trumbull County. There's a lot of dips in there, when the service stopped and it came back. So 2022 and 2023, it's kind of stabilized. I spoke with Mike Solomon today. They're probably anticipating they already have over 4,000 or so ridership this year. And that's, we're close to almost the end of the year. So just I wanted to give you some information about from the American Public Transportation Association. It's a national organization. They put together a lot of documents. They do a lot of research on public transit. And if you could see down through, as I listed them, there is one of the things that's alarming to me is the 45% of Americans that have no access to public transit. That's quite disturbing to me. And, it talks about, 9.9 billion trips on public transit nationally in the US. It's a $79 billion industry that generates over, jobs for 430,000 people. Millennials, younger generations, they don't want to drive. there's a lot of them that don't want to drive. You have the cost of driving. And if you look at, for every dollar that's invested in public transit, it generates $5 in economic return to that particular area. And the other stats that are in, it's quite an eye opener. When you start looking at 10 million in capital investments in public transportation, yields $30 million in increased business sales. That's good for business. You also look at the estimated 39 billion in public transportation expenditures flow through private sector. Now, whether it's a private sector that's selling parts or making buses or providing public transportation for individuals in that particular area. One of the things that when you look at buying a home, and you look at different countries and you look at different states, a lot of people want to be living close to a transit station so they don't have to drive. The housing costs is a little higher, but if you don't have to drive, you can just walk down the street, catch the bus or the train or rail. That's a perk for home ownership. The other thing that I wanted to go over, that public transportation is 10 times safer per mile than an automobile. So looking at, we've been having a lot of accidents, and we have, Eastgate has done safety studies for our particular region, whether it's just distracted driving or alcohol. People are drinking and driving, not paying attention. When you're on a transit bus, most people are not going to jump in front of a transit bus or a truck, a semi-truck. When you look at some of the statistics, that you save $13,000 by riding public transit, living with one less car. That's less carbon footprint into the environment. I actually have gone to saving 13,000 because I got rid of my other car. Gasoline too, it saves the US 6 billion gallons of gasoline annually. When you look at a lot of the transit systems now converting to alternative fuel vehicles or going electric. Back in 1990, I was talking about alternative fuel vehicles in the 90s, and people thought I was from another planet. Now, money was available back then to fund a lot of projects at 100%, but people did not trust it and didn't go after the money. There are other opportunities that transit systems could tap in for funding through the Ohio EPA and other discretionary grants that are offered. And usually those grants we try to pursue or go after, or I light a fire under Dean and tell him, are you applying for this grant? and it's almost like an old married couple. It's like, leave me alone. But, anytime we have the opportunity to pursue getting funding through the feds or ODOT, we are trying to get those dollars. And as Dean had mentioned, he just received a grant, a federal grant. And I think you were in competition with another grant with the state of Ohio that you got. So Dean was able to get that grant. The state of Ohio didn't get the grant. So that was quite impressive. We got money and the state didn't for our particular area. And I mentioned earlier about the transit development program. It's actually on our website. It was presented to TAC last month. You can pull it up and read all the changes that have taken place from last year to this year. And a lot of the data relating to transit and where the routes go, their fare structure. Dean had mentioned the fare in Mahoning County is free. Trumbull County's fare structure. The urbanized area change and the designations have changed over the year. So you can read all of that stuff in the transit development program. Okay, if everyone has their cell phone, we're gonna do a little exercise. I want everybody to scan that. Let me know when you've everybody's ready. Dean, you want my glasses?
Yeah.
Okay, is everybody ready? Okay. Now. Okay. So what public transit services would you like to see in your area? It's my question to you. Now, is there like anyone that didn't scan it or would like to share what they would like to see in their area? In the urbanized area. Any trouble? Don't be shy. So we have like 4 responses. Well, those are possibly filtering in. Is there any questions that you might have for me about craziness of funding sources, things that are happening in our urbanized area as it relates to transit? Or anything else that you want to discuss? Just like, well, thanks for having me. And I have more questions, but Is that right?
Covered it all.
I covered it all. I said, oh,
I'll say it.
okay. That's it. Right.
Hey, everyone. I am Christopher Clone. I'm the Northeast Ohio Regional Director of the Ohio Environmental Council. Just real quick today, I won't take up a lot of your time. Actually, I don't have a lot of time myself, so I'm going to be quite quick. But there's a group of us, a group of nonprofits and a group of organizations in the community that are working with Eastgate to submit a Track 1 grant to the EPA Community Change Grant, which is an IRA-funded plan grant that was announced last year. My organization is assisting with some of the technical assistance, and we brought on board the grant writer for this project. And so we provided today a one-pager about the project, and what we're looking for is some feedback, any questions you might have about the project, anything you might want to provide as far as comments or anything like that. And so basically, the gist of the program is we want to retrofit a lot of our housing for our environmentally justice affected areas in our community, going in and retrofitting houses with indoor air quality changes, with energy efficiency changes, and there's a list of those goals and activities there in the second section here. We are attempting to go after the maximum on the grant of 20 million for our region, and it would be focused in Youngstown and Warren. Partners on the project include Youngstown Neighborhood Development Corporation and Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership, and then they will predominantly be leading on some of the updating of the housing. Additionally, we are looking to create workforce and employment pathways for residents in Youngstown and Warren to do the work on these projects, working on energy efficiency and the healthy home repair projects. And the last and probably the most crucial part of this is developing a strong collaborative government structure for this project. It's a lot of money, and so we intend to put together a governance structure for that as well. And so, as I mentioned, we are looking before we submit the application. We're looking for feedback from groups like this one on what you think about the project, any input or anything we should take into account as we're submitting this grant.
What's the deadline for submitting?
The deadline's in November. There are already applications that have been going in. It's a rolling application. And just this past week, they released the first round of those grants. There were 10 of those that were released this past week per track. And 2 of them are actually in Ohio, one up in Cleveland with Metro Health System and one down in Cincinnati. So.
Good question.
Sure.
Is it going to be income based for the retrofitting? Like, say there's somebody that's on the border between, low income or like a senior that's collecting Social Security or something. They're right between that threshold.
I don't know that part of it all has been worked out yet. As far as that, we have a lot of players in this, and we're doing a lot of planning to go as part of this plan, as part of this grant. And so I think that's part of it that we're definitely going to need to take into account. The equity portion.
Resident owned.
That's another part that we haven't really discussed yet. We certainly want to keep an account of, we want to do as many resident-owned projects and properties as we can with this project, but we'll look through this whole project and see how many resident-owned versus landlord-owned homes are in both communities and what we need to do there. Okay. Probably not the best person to answer that question, to be honest with you. At the bottom of this one pager that you all have, and those online or get, there's 3 emails. Myself, Megan from Fair Shake, Pittsburgh, and Carol Holmes Chamber from the Trumbull County Mental Health and Recovery Board are the 3 folks that are taking in the feedback and for our team, which is pretty big. So, that was Carol. Carol.
Hey, can I add something?
Please do.
Oh yeah, I was going to say too, a lot of these questions too about eligibility and income and everything, we hope to also be answered through our collaborative governance structure. We want the community to take the lead on a lot of this. So some of it's open-ended now because we want it to be community-based. So that's why also you can't answer some of the questions, because those are things that they're going to have to figure out as well. We'll support them through that.
Thank you, Carol. I didn't know you were on here. Sorry for scaring you, Kusana.
No problem.
Voice of God.
No, it's an issue as well.
Yeah, any questions, any feedback you have, you can email one of those emails there at the bottom of the page. Justin has other ways to get a hold of me as well. I welcome calls or text messages, anything. So, thank you all so much. Told you I'd be quick.
Okay, September General Policy Board meeting. We'll be lining up our representatives to speak at that. And if anybody has any comments or questions you have for the general policy, let us know and let Justin know. We'll communicate those
So
along.
one note on that, our September meeting was just canceled yesterday. So no worries about lining all that up. The next meeting will be in the beginning of December.
December.
So we're gonna have three.
Second.
We'll only have three.
Only 3 this year.
Okay, quick update on the tax.
Yes. Pull up my notes. So we had a pretty short agenda, but they were really dense topics. I will just kind of give you a skim coat summary. And if you're interested in anything that kind of comes up, let me know. And I'm happy to provide more information afterwards. But first up, Mark Ragazine gave an overview of our economic development program, really summarized just kind of our past 3 years of success in that program. We were awarded 13 projects for a total of $9.9 million in federal funding. Which when you take into account the total project cost of 17.2 million is pretty substantial, considering the EDA has very limited pots of money and it's competitive across an entire region of 5 states. We're in the Chicago region. So it's just a testament to the relationships we've built beyond our own borders and how strong we're able to develop these projects to go in and help our local communities capture that funding. One of the other things he updated was our comprehensive economic development strategy, which is our foundational economic document, is going through an update this year. So that's going to be taking place over the next several months. There is a committee that reviews that, and we'll also have Mark in to the CAB to provide some updates along the way so that you're all kept informed in how that's taking shape. Then he moved on to talking about broadband. Obviously, it's one area that Eastgate traditionally is not tasked with doing much work in, but a lot of our communities have needed extra assistance. So we have kind of taken the reins and led some initiatives in all 3 counties, Mahoning, Trumbull, and Ashtabula. There are broadband expansion projects that we've partnered with each county using some ARPA funds or capturing grants like ARC Power, which is federal funding, to be able to bring money back and expand the access of fiber internet to those that are unserved in those counties. So I'll include his presentation in the meeting summary. It's got a lot of great maps on the broadband side that are really interesting to dig in, where broadband's available, service levels, and all of that. So great stuff there.
It's on our website.
Mm-hmm. Up next, Kathy Zook gave an update to the ARC program. And one of the big changes that wasn't included on the agenda is that there is a resolution for review. So I will provide that again in the meeting summary, as well as to the voting board members for their consideration and approval. We'll vote via email like we have in the past. But this resolution covers the regular annual allocation of ARC funding. It's a mixture of federal and state funds that come down for community projects. And in the resolution, for those of you in the room, if you grabbed one, it lists all of the projects. You'll see 2 groupings. The grouping 1 through 9 are the projects that are recommended to be funded. And then projects 10 through 17 are kind of reserved projects that if there is more money that is made available, we'll kind of kick those projects up into the funded bucket. And some of those may just need some additional work and assistance to develop a stronger application for a future funding round. On the subsequent pages, there are quick descriptions of each of those projects. If you're ever interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to provide some more information. The other thing that Kathy updated on is the Appalachian Community Grant Program, kind of a big deal that we've talked about a whole lot over the last year or so. We are getting the ball rolling. We finally have a grant agreement with the state, which means we have access to the funding that we were awarded. So we're going to get these projects shovels in the ground real soon. We brought on some additional capacity at Eastgate. We hired an independent contractor to be a project manager. Not only will help us develop a lot of the documentation that's required and the reporting that's required as a component of this program, but we'll be able to provide direct technical assistance to the local communities that are leading this project. So expecting great results from that and a lot more coming soon. And lastly, Stephanie Dyer covered our 208 plan, which for many of you that know is our wastewater kind of management. So that sets the boundaries and the prescriptions for wastewater regulation. So where sewer service can be extended, the rules and regulations for septic systems and on-lot and off-lot systems like that. But there is a project that was submitted by the Trumbull County Sanitary Engineers requesting an amendment to the boundaries of the Mosquito and the Warren 201 facility planning areas. So as this project develops, we'll bring you more information for your review as those map boundaries change and so forth. The one thing to note is that the city of Warren has reviewed Trumbull County's request and concurs with their project proposal. So as a part of just kind of the flow of the process of how these things work, it then comes to Eastgate as the wastewater management agency to review this proposal, adjust our boundaries to make sure that our maps are in concurrence with the proposed project. And then it goes on to Ohio EPA for consideration for the permit to install to actually construct the project. There is a 45-day comment period that starts today and ends on September 14th. And I will make all of the information about this project available to you all so you can review and make comments if you have interest. And that's everything from today.
Thank you. On our CAP policies and procedures.
So another thing that's on the table over there, and for the folks that joined online, I'll bring this up and go through this real quickly. You may remember a couple months ago, we had a conversation about bylaws. We worked through a statement, came to a consensus on what that should be, and that has now gone on to the General Policy Board for inclusion in Eastgate's overall bylaws. So we took care of that part. But if you remember, a part of that was we were breaking apart bylaws, which is basically establishing the CAB as an entity of Eastgate and setting kind of your reason for existing. And we separated out how you govern yourself. So anytime you want to make changes to how we do business here, you could just do that on your own. You can make decisions about how you do the work you do. So we created this policies and procedures idea. And this took the old bylaws kind of foundation, and I've put a fresh coat of paint on it, updated some of the language, took into consideration a lot of the comments that came out during that meeting where we discussed all of these, and kind of came to this part. So this is the first time that you're all seeing it. So obviously it'll take some time to read through and digest, but wanted to make sure that we showed this off initially. We'll keep this in draft form. We may not have too much time to talk about this at the October meeting, but as you're reviewing this, if you have comments or questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to workshop any of this that's here. This is very fluid and open. And then in November, we'll look to kind of have a formal approval.
Yeah, schedule some time for it. And the same thing with the, we'll get our discussion with the board membership, the leadership, and start talking about next year's.
Yep. Exactly. So that second bullet point there is board membership and leadership. In October, I'll open up the nomination forms like we have in years past. And then when we come to November, we can make final approvals for membership for next year.
Our October meeting, which is going to be at the airport, and again, it's going to be weather dependent on what part of the airport it's going to be out with building. And also it's going to be weather dependent. Also, we go for a tour. I mean, we have a people mover, we drag somebody around. We're going to have the Anthony Trevino, our executive director, do some speaking. We could talk for an hour easily on what the Port Authority is doing. The airport notwithstanding. So I think we're going to concentrate, and you've been on some of we could talk for a couple hours just on the airport. I think we're going to, focus a little bit on what we're doing at the airport. There's just a lot going on there. I think we'll start off about the challenges what airports have and what we have to do to increase service out there. Most people ask because we don't have daily flights out there, is the airport still open? Monday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There's over 150 air operations out there a day on that airfield. There's a lot, we still have about 33,000 air operations a year. And that's a lot going on. And, they're excited over the airbase by getting the new C-130Js out there. I'm sure they'll have some more open houses to look at, a little larger, slightly larger plane. But that'll keep that base, with that mission, and hopefully one day they'll get another mission too. That'll keep that base open for decades. There's just a lot going on. The demand for service. We'll talk about the pilot shortage. We started a flight school out there. We're starting a charter service out there as well. So there's just things that are going on there. So I think we'll try to focus about 90% of what we talk about on the airport. We'll talk a little bit about the airport. I got Nick coming in from Economic Action Group. So some of the things that we have, and so we could build. If there's a way we can, we'll put it out there. We can even show up a little bit earlier, like 5:30 or something like that, because it's going to be getting dark. And if we do go out, it's worth maybe taking off a little bit early and stuff like that. So try to be flexible with your schedule on that day. We can sneak out. And so, we'll play it on here. A lot of this won't be till we'll plan it on Monday to see how the weather is going to be on Thursday. But we got enough to fill the whole day, so let alone for 2 hours. So I think we'll have some fun. Any other comments that we have at the moment? Justin, you have anything else?
No, just a lot of thanks to Kevin for really doing the hard work for October's meeting. He's putting in the time, so very appreciative.
So with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody. See you in a couple more.
Okay.